We've seen story after story after story of just how bad the reform vetting process is. And I am tempted. I am really tempted to try and fabricate a fake candidate and literally call them something. Have you ever seen the original Batman movie with Burt Reynolds and can't even remember the game guy's name was the Batman at the time. But call my candidate like Mr. P.N. Gwyn or like Oswald Cobblepot. Just choose a name like that and just see how far you could go before someone realizes, is that a fake candidate? But also fill it full of red flags just to see how far that application would go. I am seriously, I would love to see how far that will go, because honestly, what we're going to go through with today just goes to show you how bad the reform vetting process really is. It really is, because believe it or not, today, somehow, in some crazy world, reform managed to pick a dead person, and I am not making this up, a dead person to run for the mayor of Croydon. Just who knew you could run from beyond the grave? Anyway, oh dear. So as always, before we get into this, incredible incompetence, honestly, from Reform UK. Please do click on the like, share, and the subscribe button, and of course, as well, don't forget to ring the bell as well, so you get notifications when we go live and etc. and when we do a new video. And of course, as always, there are links down below. There's the Patreon page, there's the Buy Me Coffee link, there's the YouTube thank you button, and of course, as always, there is the YouTube membership down below as well. So thank you very much to everyone who does help and support the channel that way. And of course, always remember, click the like and share button. So let's get on into this, because my word, this is insane. So Farage party picked a dead woman to run for Croydon mayor. So Sharon Carby, age 70, from Bradford, sadly died back in 2024. But that did not stop Reform UK months later picking her as the Croydon mayoral candidate. How on earth did that happen? How on earth? You'd think at some point someone would have picked up the phone and go, "Hi, Sharon, guess what? You're going to be mayor of Croydon. Oh, you're dead? Well, that doesn't matter." Every time I think we've reached a new peak of incompetence, it's like you summit the you finally make the summit, you break through the cloud level, and then before you there lies an even greater peak yet to be reached. We're just unbelievable. Anyway, Nigel Farage's Reform UK party is now advertising for a candidate to run in Croydon's mayoral elections next May. This recruitment ad went out just this week, as Reform are now looking for a replacement, because at the start of this year, they chose as their Croydon mayoral candidate a woman from Yorkshire who had been dead for nearly 6 months. And so much for not parachuting in the candidates, right? Clearly, they couldn't find anyone in Croydon to do it. Despite all the hours of television time aimed now to lavish now on Farage and his lies and dog whistling politics, Reform in South London is something now of a febrile mess. According now to the past and present members of Reform, who, despite dire warnings, have now contacted this website. Our sources, some who have even quit now Reform in disgust, seem genuinely surprised that the party is now a haven for right-wingers, rednecks, and racists. With one said, I stayed in Reform after the general election, but I repeatedly overheard racist remarks from local members and even voters, including comments about senior Reform figures Ben Habib and Christina Dorden, one source said. Not surprising at all. Not surprising at all. Because there are people who generally do go and join Reform expecting it to be like this new version of the Conservative Party, only to realize, oh, this is what it's like inside. Anyway, Habib, of course, is the Karachi-born former Brexit Party MEP and, of course, co-deputy leader of Reform, who last year fell out with Farage and founded, of course, the breakaway party Advance. Is also now welcoming serial criminal Stephen Yaxi Lennon as a member. Advance now has the public backing of Elon Musk. What could, of course, possibly go wrong? What indeed? So Croydon, of course, Reform members and even ex-members describe the party at a local level that, of course, barely exists in any recognizable organized form. Doesn't surprise me. According to sources, Reform across Croydon and Sutton is organised now jointly, and the WEF Uni Party is so powerful that a reference now to the paranoid notion that Jason Perry and Renora Derris are in some manner in cahoots with the World Economic Forum will let our readers, of course, decide the likelihood of that particular conspiracy theory. This is the kind of stuff I wish would get reported more, because I have heard stuff about my own local party, and I've been very, very hesitant um, to sort of talk about it, purely for the fact that one of the people inside um, the Reform Party is very, very litigious, and I have stayed away from talking about some of that stuff. But again, for this, this recognizes from what I've seen and what I've heard that has been going on in Reform up in this area. Not only that, but in other local parties as well. I wish this would get reported more, to be honest. So, Reform is, of course, said to have fewer than at least 1,000 party members across the constituency of Croydon and Sutton. The party meetings, are, of course, are regularly staged at the Spoons pub in Cecildon and the Sir Julian Huxley. This is where, of course, they staged their selection meeting for the 2024 parliamentary candidate. Now, fair enough if they've got a room somewhere, that they can go and do it away. But why on earth would you have your parliamentary selection meeting in a Spoons? Anyway, other meetings have, of course, been held in the Crown and Pepper on the South End, or, of course, at the Pear Tree in Purley, where the living room in the home now of a local chairman, Nick Stewart, is also served for meetings. Reform members have now also been ordered not to speak to Inside Croydon, which apparently is, of course, run by the wokest leftist MSM. One member said, "Your sort want to erase our ideas." Another said, "Although I've been told to avoid you, I want the free and open journalism to show how great our wonderful Nigel Farage and his party are." Oh dear. Anyway, with very little either effort or money spent on anything, of course, resembling conventional campaigning in Croydon last year, Reform still drew in thousands of votes, particularly, of course, in Croydon East, a third behind Labour and the Tories. Croydon, of course, South, picked at third by the Lib Dems. And although the Vatnik Maral Holder, a candidate, Vianca Malthona, a candidate, of course, of South Asian origin. I said Vatnik there. That was that was a terrible misreading of that. Viana Mathora, a candidate now of South Asian origin, almost lost his deposit in Croydon West, down to the racist attitudes now from the party, according to one disillusioned Reform foot soldier. Following, of course, the general elections, Zia Youssef and Reform Party, then party chairman, until he had a falling out with Farage, there may be, of course, a pattern here, sent an auditor now into the branch, making serious recommendations over financial records, the holding now of branch meetings, and, of course, staging now of campaign events. Versions, of course, may vary, but this appeared now at the start of 2025. Reforms UK's HQ imposed on its Croydon branch an approved candidate to challenge the Tory Jason Perry to become the borough's next mayor. The name was Sharon Carsby, 70, from Bradford, but Carby died in September of 2024, and fewer than 10 Reform members were even present at this selection meeting. One said of Carby, "I haven't even met her, but I've been told that she's absolutely brilliant." They added, "A working class patriot for Bradford," they said. That Carby had been selected for a majority vote on the XCOM Executive Committee meeting at Millbank Towers, the party's very plush headquarters. Carby's, of course, social media timeline is, of course, full of the garbled racist bile that seekers now to scapegoats of other countries' shortcomings, such as Carby was, of course, a Tommy Robinson fan. Her profile describes her as a Brexiteer, anti-woke patriot, anti-WEF Christian conservative, reform member, and Farage lover, Tommy DJT, and, of course, a latter letters now a reference to the Orange Man child that inhabits the White House, of course. What a perfect candidate. Anyway, at Reform's Croydon selection meeting, those who suggested that Carby's death might be a bit of a problem for them at the 2026 elections were then either abused or ordered to be quiet. So wait, this just gets even better, because at this selection meeting, they knew she was dead, and members were bringing that up, saying, "Isn't that going to be a bit of a problem that, she's died?" And they were told to be quiet and to shut up about it. What? Incredible. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Oh. So, some, of course, drink have, of course, been taken by some of the older members attending at the meeting, and they became quite abusive. When I phoned the HQ, they claimed to have no knowledge of me at all, our source said. After years now as a member of being the Brexit Party and then Reform, the member then quit Farage's party over what they described as an absolutely chaotic candidate selection in Croydon. Another local Reform member confirmed to Inside Croydon that Carby had been parachuted in by HQ, who had told them that she was from Yorkshire and had been handing out leaflets for the Brexit Party and Reform UK since 2019. Well, what a wonderful candidate. Oh, she's been handing out leaflets since 2019. Clearly, she needs to be Mayor of Croydon. Anyway, it is, of course, suggested that Carby may have even been even a prospective parliamentary candidate for Bradford South back in 2024, but quietly refused due to her ill health. So Reform HQ did at least know that Carby wasn't very well. Carby's Twitter account has, of course, been maintained for the past year by a widower, David Carby. Sharon Carby, according to her husband, died back on September 27th, 2024. She was a proud member of Reform and always had deeply loved her community in Bradford and hoped to run for the council in 2025. David wrote then, although she didn't mention which councillor his late wife wanted to run for. Inside Croydon contacted Nick Stewart, who claims now to be the chair for Reform UK in Croydon, but refused to answer any of our questions. Having reviewed a previous article in which Reform were mentioned, we do not wish to engage further at this time, Stewart said somewhat snootily. Though, of course, continuing the whole theme that Reform UK are basically not doing any interviews or refusing to engage with local press. What a surprise on that front. Reform UK has also now failed to respond to any of our emails. The Conservatives, of course, then picked their candidate for Croydon Mayor back in 2024. Labour, Lib Dems and Greens all announced their candidates earlier back in 2025. Reform UK is now only just advertising for a candidate. It's kind of convenient when you find out that your candidate's been dead for the past 6 months. Anyway, just, of course, in case you do fancy your chances as Croydon's mayor as a replacement candidate for a dead woman, you might want to, of course, consider this party's advertisement. saying, "We are looking now for exceptional people to put themselves forward to be our candidate for the elected position of Mayor of Croydon. Bringing a dead woman might qualify. You're exceptional, if you might suggest." Like I say, running from beyond the grave. Who knew? They're literally all dying to be candidates. Again, insert your terrible bad joke in the comments below. Anyway, no prior political experience is, of course, necessary, but you must be talented, have a track record of solving problems in the real world, and be deeply patriotic. Most of all, you must have a huge passion for improving the lives of the people of Croydon. Apparently, the best candidate will then be invited now to further rounds, presumably now referring to the strong foreigner, larger drinker at the convenient branch now of Spoons, to then be followed by an interview panel of local members. The successful candidate will then, of course, be supported with comprehensive training from the Reform Centre of Excellence. Although Reform Centre of Excellence appears to now stop short of bringing dead candidates back to life. what what can you even say to that? That is insane. Maybe Reform UK needs to be advertising for a necromancer. Maybe they can bring back more dead candidates. I don't know. Pick your favorite corpse, I suppose you want to run next time. But my word. Good lord, that is some insane stuff going on there. But anyway, as always, thank you very much for this. Let me know what you think about all this down below. But my word, I'm speechless at the end of this, generally. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.